Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "Neighbor let her brat park in my driveway repeatedly. I could not go to work. I got him towed. They called the cops on me for stealing their car." Less than 2 years ago, my wife and I moved into our first house together. Before this, we lived in an apartment for several years after we got married. Now, we do not have kids of our own yet, so maybe I'm a little biased, but it seems like some kids and parents these days are incredibly entitled and bratty. Our next door neighbors and their son especially were extremely entitled. And by the way, Ripe Stars, if you ever had to deal with entitled people in your own life, then please let us know in the comments. Anyway, the story starts shortly after we moved in. For starters, we had a decent sized driveway and it sat on the side of the house that was next to this particular neighbor. Mine and my wife's car could fit easily and we could fit up to 4 cars. Our next door neighbor was a small family, a husband and wife with their 2 sons. They had 3 cars in their driveway prior to us moving in. At first, this family was very friendly and it seemed like we could get along great. As a matter of fact, my wife seemed excited to make new friends so quickly right after moving into the neighborhood. However, her excitement quickly diminished. About a month and a half after we moved in, the father from next door came knocking on our door. He had come over to tell us that his 16-year-old son had just gotten his first car, a huge Ford F350 truck. At first I thought it was weird he would come over just to tell us this. I mean, that is great and all. I remember my first car, but my parents definitely did not go around the neighborhood telling everyone. Well, it quickly became obvious why he wanted to come over and tell us. He then asked us if his son could park his car in our driveway, as our driveway had a significant amount of space compared to theirs. While I enjoyed the company of these neighbors, I really did not want some chunky beefed up truck in my driveway. Not only that, but who asks that? In my opinion, there was no reason why they could not park the truck in the garage or street. After I had told them no, that I was not really comfortable with that, the father started whining on my doorstep and was complaining that they did not have room in their driveway or garage. They should have thought about that before they bought the truck. How and why was that my problem? Well, he did not like this answer. He actually told me straight to my face that he should be able to park in my driveway. At this point, I was starting to get pissed off. Seriously, it was not my problem that he bought a truck that was too big to park anywhere. I told him this in response, and we will let us just say that this was the end of the friendly relationship and the start of an ongoing war. Several days later, I came home to find that huge white truck sitting in my driveway, blocking my wife's car. And my wife was actually standing on the porch next door, arguing with my neighbor. I had parked my own car on the street as I did not want to block my wife's car in along with the truck. I immediately went up to my neighbor and asked him what the hell his problem was. I told him that technically he was trespassing, but he did not even seem to give a damn. I really did not want any problems, and I found it extremely frustrating that these people were not respecting our rejection or our property. After a few minutes of pointless arguing, my wife and I headed back home and we noticed that the son was leaving in his car. We waited until he left and brought out our garbage cans to block the driveway. Well, the next morning when we woke up, we had seen that the garbage cans were moved and the truck was back in the driveway. I was so pissed off that I almost took off and started a fight with that son of a gun right then and there, but luckily for them, my wife stopped me. The truck disappeared, and few hours later, and I had gone over to another neighbor's house to tell them the story and see what we could do to get these a-holes to stop parking in our driveway. Our neighborhood was actually a part of an HOA, which luckily for us the house was well maintained, so they did not really bother us. And also, this neighbor suggested we get the HOA involved to see what we could do. However, a few more days went by and the truck was not in our driveway anymore. I was actually gaining hope that they had just decided to stop being a-holes, but of course that was not the case. One Monday morning, my wife was getting ready for work when she saw that the truck was back in the driveway, blocking not just her car, but my car too. She could not even get out of the driveway to go to work. Frustrated and pissed off, I called the police and within minutes they were at our door. I explained to them the situation and how my wife could not even go to work because her car was blocked in. Well, with the help of the police, we had called out a tow truck to remove the car from our driveway. Of course, while this was happening, both the father and son had come out causing a ruckus, screaming that we were stealing their car. Imagine having the balls to tell the police that we were stealing their car that was parked in our driveway against our will. It has been over a year since this happened, and I am thankful to say that we have a good bond now with our other neighbors. The next door neighbors actually traded in the truck for a smaller version just months after, and I'm assuming they would be sulking about it. We were able to file a trespassing report and document the whole incident, but we decided not to take it any further. We just wanted it in writing in case they behaved like this in the future, although I doubt they will because they have not spoken a word to us since then. Sometimes being an a-hole back is worth it. And Ripe Stars, personally, one thing I can really not understand is when parents buy their kids completely new cars when they are new drivers. Where I am from in Europe, that is really not common, and I'm curious, where you are from, is it common that parents buy new cars, at least if they can afford it, for their kids when they are new drivers? I gotta say, here in Thailand it also seems to be very common, because I know a lot of young Thais that have completely new cars, and it just baffles me. The next one is titled, Impatient Neighbor Makes My Mom Cut Down Trees, so Mom Buys a Cheap Fence so 3-year-old me can run around in the backyard faces the ugly side of the fence toward the neighbor. This was 13 years ago and my mom had some trees in the backyard that were dead and some that provided the neighbor's yard with shade. The neighbor wanted the dead ones taken down and Mom told her that she had called the landscaping company and set up an appointment, which she did. Anyone who's ever tried to get landscaping people to come look at your yard knows that kind of thing takes a while. It was not moving fast enough for the neighbor, so she called the Department of Housing, who told Mom to take down the trees. So Mom decided to cut down all the trees, not just the ones that the neighbor didn't like, including the ones that provided the neighbor's yard with some shade and that she did like. After Mom wanted to put up a fence so the 3-year-old me could run around and play in the yard. Instead of buying a nice fence, Mom opted to buy the cheapest fence possible. One side looked okay, but the other side was ugly as hell. When the guy came to put up the fence, Mom told him that she wanted the ugly side facing our neighbor, and when the guy asked if she was worried about pissing off the neighbor, her reply was a resounding nope. The neighbor of course complained, but since it was on our property, she could not do anything about it. And Ripe Stars, if you have watched until here and enjoy the stories about entitled people, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. The next one is titled, I can hear my upstairs neighbor snore through the floor as if he was laying in bed next to me. I told this story last night to some friends and they suggested I post it here, so here it is. I live on the 2nd floor of a 3-floor apartment building. The apartments above and below me are both laid out exactly the same as mine. Currently, the downstairs apartment is vacant and the landlord is planning on renovating it slowly over the next few months to have it ready for summer. The upstairs neighbor moved in about 3 months ago now, after the previous couple moved out. I never once heard any excessive noise from the previous tenants. I have lived here for almost 3 years, but the tenants above and below me over this time have all stayed for a 1-year lease only and then moved on. I tend to stay up until about 11:30/12 most nights before I go to bed, and I always sleep with a fan on in my room for white noise. For the last 3 months, when I get in bed and turn on my fan, I can still hear the new neighbor snoring. It is so loud, I'm surprised the light fixture on my ceiling does not vibrate. When I roll over and try to fall asleep, the noise is so loud that I could compare it to sleeping with someone with untreated sleep apnea on a mattress on the floor next to you. I spent the first month distressed and exhausted at the lack of sleep. Halfway through the second month, I started being passive-aggressive and taping brochures for sleep apnea clinics on their mailbox, and got myself a nice pair of earplugs. And I can still hear him snore over the fan and with the earplugs. At this point I am struggling to keep it together, as I am a light sleeper, but what can I do? He is in a whole other apartment. I consider moving my bed to main part of my apartment, but I really don't want to sleep in the same room I cook and my cat poops. Then one night, when I cannot fall asleep, I decide to try the good old reliable method of tiring myself enough to pass out and grab my magic wand and plug it in. That is when inspiration hit me. I turned that magic massage wand on high speed and laid it between my solid bed frame and the wall, so it made an insanely loud rumbling noise that was absolutely unavoidable to hear upstairs. After a few minutes, I heard the neighbor get out of bed and stomp around wondering what the sound could be. I left it the way it was for about 15 minutes, and when I turned it off, I could not hear anything upstairs. I fell asleep peacefully and easily for the first time since he moved in. For the last few weeks, every night when I start to get ready for bed, I do this. I use the noise to wake the neighbor for 15 minutes while I prepare for bed, and then turn it off and fall asleep within minutes without hearing the snoring. If I ever encounter him in person and he asks if I know what the noise is, I intend to tell him it is the old hot water system in the building. And yeah, ripe stars, since JB, my girlfriend, and I, and by the way, visit her channel, it is called Reading Bear Studios, recently moved into a townhouse, aka we moved to a different place once again, but we intend to stay here. I was kind of worried that the walls might be thin and that we would hear the neighbor and especially their dog pretty much 24/7, but it seems like we got lucky, and actually it is very quiet here and very nice to record my videos. However, we also got a cat, so maybe in the future you will hear some meows here and there, and I might even introduce her in a future video. And the next one is titled, HOA forced me to take down my rainbow flags and threatened daily $100 fine. I live in one of those areas that has an HOA, but most people usually forget it exists. That is mainly due to all the bylaws for it being just normal things that make sense, like not letting your property be a total mess or things like that. So when I do most things, I don't even need to really bother checking if something is allowed by the HOA or not. After a certain tragic attack happened, we decided that we would show our support by putting up a rainbow flag on our property. Now, it was not a crazy thing on a 50-foot pole or anything, it was just a normal-sized flag that let us show not only our support, but that we are open and accepting people. Me and my wife often took in foster children temporarily, so it also seemed nice in case we got a teenager that was unsure or scared about if we were super conservative or something. Anyway, I thought it looked nice and nobody really said anything about it. But of course, this is a story being posted on this subreddit, so somebody clearly did something stupid or illogical. That award goes to the antagonist of my little tale, who I will call HOA Guy. Very creative, I know. He sent me a letter in the mail stating that my flags went against HOA bylaws, and if I didn't remove them, I would face fines. I knew who this guy was, so to avoid the slow process of mailing back and forth, I went to go and speak to him. Before that, of course, I took a look at the bylaws for myself, so I was not showing up to a potential fight without a clue. Me? Excuse me? I was hoping you had a few minutes to discuss this letter that you sent me. HOA Guy.
So, you're the owner of that abomination on the front of your yard.
I already knew this was not going well, but I tried to keep a calm demeanor. Me? It's actually by my front door, not really my yard. HOA guy.
Either way, it's against the bylaws and you need to take it down. Makes the whole neighborhood looks bad and then we will have the wrong sort moving in.
Me? If you're saying that LGBT people will move in, then I don't think of that as a problem. Also, I kind of doubt me having a flag will cause that. Anyway, there is nothing stopping me from having a flag up on my property, dude. HOA guy.
The only flags allowed are good old-fashioned American flags.
Me, nothing in the bylaws says that we cannot have flags on our property. HOA guy.
It says that you cannot have anything offensive on your property and it even gives a flag as an example.
This was actually true, and in the bylaws it said that you could not put up anything offensive and as an example mentioned the Nazi flag. So this guy was seriously trying to compare the rainbow flag, which stood for inclusion and acceptance, to the Nazi flag, which represented hate and basically a genocide. Me, it is not the same thing and I'm not taking it down, since it doesn't go against anything. HOA guy.
If you don't take it down, then I will fine you $100 for every single day that you keep it up.
With that, he closed his door and I went back home to try and figure out what to do. I knew for sure that if he fined me anything, I was not going to pay it and keep the letters and fines as proof of harassment or something. Also, to prove that he was using a bylaw that had nothing to do about flags stopping me from having a rainbow flag in my yard. Our conversation was not the quietest of things and people who were out and about heard me arguing with him. When they asked me what it was about, I truthfully told them and soon the word spread about what was going on. I just did not expect what happened after a few days of me receiving fines in the mail from him. I went for a walk and noticed that a ton of the neighbors had put up rainbow flags in their yard, most of which were smaller, but they were still decorating their lawns with them to show that they support the right to have it over the HOA guy's right to be a bigot. Finally, things had to come to a boil because at the next HOA meeting, no other point was getting to be made with what was going on with me and him at the forefront. I honestly thought that he was in charge of the HOA or something, the way he was acting, but it turns out that he was actually just very low and did not even have the authority to be giving out fines. I showed them everything he sent me and a few others came forward with fines that he gave them as well. I said that I wanted the matter to be fully settled once and for all, so I could stop having to fight about keeping my flag. They let him try to explain his reasoning on why the flag violated the bylaws, but it just turned into another bigoted rant that I don't think anyone here needs to know the details of. Just know that not a single person seemed to be on his side or supporting anything he said. The head of the HOA said that unless he could show any fact that my rainbow flag was offensive, then it was 100% allowed for me to have it. He obviously could not, because even if he did not like the connections to it, that did not make it a hateful symbol. Honestly, I still cannot believe that he tried to compare the rainbow flag to the likes of the Nazi flag, which, if someone put it up, would honestly probably be stolen and destroyed before it could get this far. Obviously, all of the fines that he was giving were avoided and we did not owe a penny. It got a little sweeter though still when I found out the HOA guy was now just a guy because he lost his position on the HOA board because of this stunt he tried to pull with us. Later that week in the mail, I got a full apology from the HOA stating that he did not reflect the rest of their values and they wanted to personally tell me that my rainbow flag was not only allowed but encouraged. Some neighbors kept their flags up too, and when Pride Month rolled around that year, almost every single house had one flying except for that neighbor, of course. He stayed his grouchy self, but without any power now, he could not even pretend to do anything. Who would have thought one colorful rainbow flag being put up by a single person could rock an entire neighborhood and cause so much drama? I sure didn't, but even if I did, I probably still would have put it up just so the entire neighborhood could make that guy butthurt again. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.